Hi, my name is Anthony Cala. I'm a former Staff Sergeant in the United States Army. I currently work as a Senior Project Manager for Southwestern family of companies, working on the Salesforce implementation projects and IT projects. Before I joined Southwestern family of companies, I served in the military for just under 16 years, 10 years active duty, 6 years in the National Guard. I was stationed at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii from 2002 to 2011, where I served as an infantryman. Went to Iraq 3 times. My first deployment was in 2004, 2005. My second deployment was 2007, 2009. And my last one was 2010 to 2011. So in 2004, 2005, I was on my first deployment and I had my first alive day in Kirkuk, Iraq. While on a patrol, an improvised explosive device had exploded on the side of the road. And when it had happened, there was nobody there at the intersection. It was like they knew what was about to happen. That deployment, we lost John Amos. He was just 19 years old. He died from a vehicle-borne IED. After that deployment, I had a lot of survivor's guilt and was feeling a lot of different emotions. When on my second deployment back to Iraq, I lost a friend named John Schoolcraft, who had just gotten married right before that deployment. On my last deployment, I was pulling guard for a convoy to go from base to base to base. And our mission that day was to pull security and make sure that nothing would happen to the 25 vehicles that were going from base to base. That night, 2 guys had popped their heads out and we were fired head on by a rocket-propelled grenade team. That particular rocket had hit my striker, and it was at that time earlier that day that I was supposed to re-enlist and decided that it was my time to hang up the uniform and that I was done with my service. After my active duty, I joined the National Guard from 2011 to 2017. And believe it or not, my just under 16 years of service was actually not the hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life. It was the after. It was picking up all the pieces, all the emotions that I experienced overseas, having them come now full circle, and working through what in the Vietnam War era they call shell shock, and now we call post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. And when I got out of active duty, I volunteered to participate in honor guard funerals. And one particular funeral that I had participated, my mission that day was to wear my normal uniform, go on the belly of the plane with the baggage claim personnel, and take the cardboard off of the casket that was underneath the belly of the plane, and make sure that the stripes, which is feet first, was pointed down, because where the stars was where the head is in the casket, and make sure that the soldier was carried to the utmost honor and respect and dignity. That day was probably one of the hardest days that I've ever had to endure, because all the lives that were lost came full circle. I was now a part of an active duty soldier coming home. So that day, those emotions, that experience, I realized that I had pretty severe PTSD. And at that time, I really didn't do anything with it. I ran into an organization called Wounded Warrior Project, and Wounded Warrior Project said, "What do you think about opening up a veteran students group?" And I said, that sounds like a great idea. And I found nurturing and care helping other people rather than having to deal with my own injuries and my own things that I was dealing with. Helping others actually helped me. 6 months later, 7 interviews, I got an opportunity to work for Wounded Warrior Project as an outreach coordinator. It was during that time where I was able to help empower injured service members from overseas. My job was to travel Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. And when Wounded Warrior Project would do an event, we would rent out suites so that people wouldn't have to feel that there was a lot of people behind them. We'd rent out party suites for Lady Gaga, Jay-Z, and Beyonce concerts, and that was a lot of fun. When I left Wounded Warrior Project, my wife says to me, there's this organization called Building Homes for Heroes that gives mortgage-free houses to people that have been injured like yourself. And at that time, I didn't feel that I was worthy to apply for it, but I filled out the essay, I filled out the application. A year and a half later, I get a call from Building Homes for Heroes saying that they want to show me a house in Lakeland. I said, sure. My wife and I were in Seattle, Washington at the time, so we had set up a Skype interview. And we're looking at the house, and Kim Baldeck says to my wife and I, this house is yours. What do you say to something like that when somebody says that an organization is about to give you a house for free? My wife and I were crying. We were shocked. 2 weeks later, Building Homes for Heroes flew us to Lakeland, Florida, and my wife and I were now homeowners of a mortgage-free house. Getting the house was a very humbling experience. At the time, my kids were 13 and 9. Having them have a stable home was definitely very good. But when I got the house, the first year was probably the hardest year for me. I had a lot of survivor skills. I had thought that somebody was going to knock on the door and say, you know what, we made a mistake. This house is not yours. And so it was at that time that I figured out that I needed to do something for my PTSD because it was impacting my family. It was impacting me as a father, as a person, as a leader of the community. And so I had applied for a service dog through an organization called Canines for Warriors. Canines for Warriors is an organization that gives service dogs to people who have been injured from their service, from post-traumatic stress, military sexual trauma, and traumatic brain injury. And about a year later, after I got this house, I got a call from Canines for Warriors that after being on the waiting list for a year, my time had come. And so I thought this was my chance to start to change my life, to live in my new normal. We were interviewed by a dog behaviorist and some dog trainers. Then they say, okay, go have lunch and come back after lunch and you're gonna meet your battle buddy. So after lunch comes, open up the door, and this white poodle comes out, and it was Judy. When I got her, she was about 65 pounds. She was only just about a year and a half old. She had been trained there for a year. She was an owner of surrender. We've been now together for almost 4 years. She goes everywhere where I go. She travels with me. We think we've been on 50 round trip tickets. She helps me to slow everything down, to feel feelings again, to engage with my wife, engage with my kids. I'll go out in public and not be so angry and so upset and be so hypervigilant, always looking at the exits, and just help me to further along my career. I found Southwestern family of companies, and now I'm a senior project manager, and I enjoy it and I love it. And that's my story. A message to veterans that have served: thank you for your service. There is help out there. There is the Veteran Crisis Line that helps stop veteran suicide. There are 22 veterans a day that are committing suicide. And today, out of all 3 of my deployments, I have lost 10 brothers to suicide. Hopefully, me sharing this story, you are able to reach out for help. Canines for Warriors offers service dogs to help and empower. Building Homes for Heroes gives mortgage-free homes to people who are 90% rated with the VA, and also Gold Star family members. Hopefully, maybe they can help you or a friend that you know that is in need to help stop veteran suicide.